بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد Alhamdulillah thumma alhamdulillah. Another fast has gone by, so every opportunity that we get, we should show our gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the opportunity to fast, and to give also given He has given us an opportunity to become closer and closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So continuing from yesterday, Mufti Mukarram Damat Barakatuhum, he mentioned few aspects of zakat. One aspect he mentioned was upon whom is zakat farz, upon whom zakat is farz, and secondly, upon which items do you pay zakat upon which items do we pay zakat. Today I'll be answering two more questions. The third question being, how do we calculate our zakat? And lastly, fourth question is, whom do we pay our zakat to? Who is eligible to take zakat? So firstly, question number 3, the method of calculating zakat. So zakat is farz on a person who has the nisab for 1 year, meaning the first time he ever reached nisab, the threshold. Today is approximately 390 something pounds. You can check on various websites about what the current threshold is. So the first time the person ever reached the threshold, and he's had that wealth for 1 year. So for example, a person first ever reached the threshold on the 15th of Sha'ban. The 15th of Sha'ban. Now that is his zakat anniversary date, the 15th of Sha'ban. Now it's important to note, when we are calculating the year, when we're calculating our zakat, we take in note the Islamic months. We do not take in account for the Gregorian calendar. We go according to the lunar Islamic calendar, not the Gregorian calendar. It's very important to note. So the 15th of Sha'ban was the first time I ever reached nisab. Now that is my zakat anniversary date. And throughout the whole year, 1 whole year passes, and on the 14th of Sha'ban, so now 1 year has passed. If I am currently on the nisab, that day's nisab, okay, that day's nisab, if I've reached it, or I am above the nisab, the threshold, then zakat will be farz upon me. So I have to have the nisab, and 1 year has to pass, and then zakat will be farz upon me, and I will pay zakat upon that. Regardless if in the middle of the year my wealth decreased and increased, even if it went to the little as £1, and on the zakat anniversary date, the 14th of Sha'ban, I was on the threshold or above it, I will still have to pay zakat, regardless if my money decreased. The only time my zakat date will renew or set again, okay, the only time my zakat date will renew itself is when I go completely zero. I mean bankrupt, no money and no assets whatsoever. That means no cash, no business assets, no gold, no silver, nothing at all. I'm completely zero. That's the only time I will ever reset my zakat date. Now the question arises that I did have the nisab threshold on the 15th of Sha'ban for the first time. 1 whole year passed. The 14th of Sha'ban came by. Now 1 year has passed. But on the 14th of Sha'ban, the following year, I only have, for example, £300. Now £300 is below the threshold. Is below the threshold. And that, what I mean by is my wealth, as in my cash, my silver, my gold, any business assets, whatever it may be, they are all less than, totaled up all together, they are all less than the zakat threshold. Then I will not pay zakat for that year. I will not pay zakat for that year if I have cash, gold, silver, whatever business assets, whatever it may be. If totaled up, they are less than the threshold, I will not pay zakat that year. The next year, when the next 14th of Sha'ban comes, I will have to assess it again. Am I on the threshold or above it? So the condition is, I have to have nisab, and one whole year has to pass. Another question arises is that, if I have, for example, only £100 worth of gold. Now £100 worth of gold, that is beneath the threshold. Okay. I also have, at the same time, I only have £50 worth of silver, for example. So totally, that's £150. That is still not above the threshold. I've got £100 worth of cash, £100 cash in my bank account or in my pocket, wherever they may be. Now that's total £250. I am still not eligible to pay zakat. Also, I have business assets which total up to £100 or £150. Now once I add them all up together, so 250 plus 150 equals £400. Now I have reached the threshold. We do not look at individual categories. We do not look at gold on its own. We do not look at silver on its own. We do not look at cash on its own. We do not look at our business assets alone. When we calculate our zakat, we calculate everything together. We total up everything together and we pay zakat upon that. We give the cash value of the gold and silver and we pay zakat upon that. We do not look at individual categories and pay zakat for individual ones. Some people may not reach over the threshold in each individual category. That's why we total up everything together and then we pay zakat upon that. Another question is very commonly asked is that 1 year I paid £20,000. I paid zakat upon my £20,000. Now the next year my wealth increased. Now I have £25,000. But I only increased £5,000 in wealth. I only increased £5,000 in wealth. Do I pay zakat on the 5,000 that was increased, or do I pay my zakat on the full total 25,000? Now the ruling is that we give zakat upon the total £25,000. Although we may have given zakat upon it previous year on the 20,000, but this year 1 year has passed. The ruling is, if you have the money, if you've reached the threshold and 1 year has passed, that is a condition. So that means we still have to pay zakat on the £25,000. Okay, so when we calculate the zakat, we've got to take into account the cash, the gold, the silver, any business assets, and also if you've got any pension funds. We have to check how much money we have in our pension funds. If you've got any assets in forex exchange or any other type of business assets, whatever it may be, we total them all up together and then we pay zakat upon that. And let's also remember to keep a note of your lunar calendar date. On which date did you actually first own the threshold? Alhamdulillah, nowadays we have banking apps where we can track. We have a rough estimate of when we first ever received our paycheck, or when we first ever received our Eid money, or whatever gift money it may be. We can track it and then we have to calculate a zakat for that date. It is fard upon us, if we do not know, to go and investigate and find out when is our zakat actually due. Now it's a very common tradition that people pay their zakat in the month of Ramadan, where in fact paying their zakat in the month of Ramadan is not farz upon them. The farz has come at another time, when they first ever reached their paycheck or when they first got their gift money, which was equivalent to the threshold. Now we have to figure it out. The reason I say this is very, very important. That what if a person's zakat date was actually in Muharram or Sha'ban or any month before Ramadan, and he hasn't paid his zakat, and he passes away before the month of Ramadan comes. And if he passes away before the month of Ramadan comes, he is such a person who has not fulfilled his obligatory duty, which is paying zakat. That's why it's very, very important to know your actual zakat date. So we need to investigate, figure it out, and find out zakat date. and pay our zakat upon our zakat anniversary date. Now, people may still want to pay their zakat in the month of Ramadan. So what should a person do now? Because in the month of Ramadan, our deeds are multiplied by 70. So people want to take advantage of that. So what we do is, if our zakat date is in Muharram, for example, the 10th of Muharram, that's my zakat date. Now I make a note and set aside a sum of money that I'm supposed to be paying for my zakat. So on the 10th of Muharram, I'm calculating my zakat. I've taken money out. I've set it aside, which I will pay in the month of Ramadan. I take a note of it. And also it's very important to make your close relatives, your inheritors, aware of this note. You can also put into your will, there's a page in your will, the last testament, where you can write down what your last wishes are. And in there you can put in, I have got zakat due upon me, my zakat day is on 10th of Muharram, and I wish to pay it in the month of Ramadan. If by chance I pass away before the month of Ramadan, then my wish is my inheritors pay my zakat off for me. In such a case and such a scenario, then there's hope that inshallah Allah will accept our zakat. So this is why it's very, very important to note what your zakat date is. And when your zakat date is, take a note and set aside some certain money, add it into your will, or make someone aware amongst your inheritors that I have to pay zakat in the month of Ramadan. If I pass away, pay my zakat for me, from my inheritance. So it's very, very important to know your zakat date. We don't want to be of those people who die as a person who never paid their zakat money. Also, when calculating your zakat, you have to take in note of any debts. Now, if we have lent someone else money, so a third party, we have given money to them. For example, I've given them £1,000. Now I will add that on to my own wealth and assets. So even if I have £100, and £100 is beneath the threshold, okay, but I have given someone else £1,000, I will have to consider that £1,000 to be in my possession. So it is as though I own £1,100, and I will pay zakat upon £1,100. So it's pay zakat on £1,100. I will take into account the money that is owed to myself. The second type of debt is when I owe money to someone else. And this falls in two different types as well. So for example, if it's a small loan between friends or family, whatever it may be, so I will deduct that from my total assets. So for example, I have £5,000 and I owe £1,000 to a friend or a family member. So when I calculate my zakat, I will deduct £1,000 from my 5,000. So I will be giving zakat upon £4,000 because I still owe £1,000 to a friend or family member. That is the most basic type of debt that we pay to someone else. The second type of debt that we owe to someone else is a large sum of debt. And it's a conditional debt, it's a long-term debt. Usually they're business loans from a bank or a mortgage. Now what those mortgages and those loans, they are very, very large sum. Now if a person takes that debt into account, then he will be on the minuses. He will be very poor. But in actual fact, he's got plenty of money in his account. He's got £10,000 in his account, but he owes the bank £200,000. So he will be in the minuses. He will be minus £190,000. Okay, but this is not the fact. What a person should do in such a scenario, in such a case, if he owes a large sum of debt, usually these banks have a certain amount which you pay back each year. So when you have a mortgage, you pay back, for example, £6,000 a year, or £7,000 or £8,000, wherever it may be. Now a person who owns £10,000 in his bank, who has £10,000 in total assets, but he has a mortgage, that year, if he has to pay back £6,000, I will only deduct £6,000, not the full £200,000 mortgage debt. I would only repay the 6,000. I will only deduct £6,000 from my total assets. So even if I got £20,000 cash in my account, or £10,000, I will take away 6,000. So if I have £10,000, I will deduct £6,000. It is as though I have £4,000 in total assets, and I will pay zakat upon £4,000. So I will only deduct what I owe for that year to the bank. And these are different types of debt that a person may have. Okay, and now moving on to the last part, and the last question is, to whom zakat can be given? To whom zakat can be given? Now zakat can be given to any poor Muslim person. Poor Muslim person. In Sharia, a person is considered to be poor when his wealth does not add up to the nisab. When his wealth does not add up to nisab. That means totaling everything up. All of his assets, every single thing, it does not total up to nisab. Okay, that means gold, silver, cash, business stocks, any type of pension schemes or forex, whatever money he's put into, whatever it may be, it does not add up to the nisab threshold. Okay, and that is a poorest person. They can receive zakat. Now there's three types of people, there are three categories of people. There are those people who have wealth that equal to or above the nisab. They pay zakat. And there's those people whose total assets do not add up to the nisab. They can take zakat. And this middle category, this third type of person, is that such a person, outwardly they seem poor. Outwardly they seem poor. However, such a person possesses items of wealth. For example, if they were to add their cash value together, it equals nisab or more than such. For example, if he has certain items in his household, for example, he has television, he has a camera, he has a mobile phone, his necessity items. He may not be cash rich, never asset rich. Okay, he may be seem outwardly poor, but he has necessity items, necessary items at home, and is living comfortably. Okay, for example, he has a phone, mobile phone. Smartphones, they cost £400, £500. Such a person who possesses such items, it will not be permissible to give the zakat to him. It will not be permissible to give as our zakat to such a person, because he has wealth which is more than the nisab. Okay, he has a house, he has a car, he has a mobile phone, he has technology, he has a television, whatever it may be. Those belongings are more than the threshold, the zakat threshold. Such a person is not allowed to receive zakat. Only to a dire poor person, only they can accept zakat money. Only they can take zakat money. Also, as a last note, which people are most entitled to receiving zakat? The most entitled are your close relatives. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that the best sadaqah, the best charity you can give is to your own family. So if you got any relatives that are poor, they are not under the care of anyone else who is rich, then we may give zakat to them. And the reason why I say under the care, for example, we may have brothers and sisters that are poor. But the thing is, our brothers and sisters may live with their parents or uncles or aunties, and they are under the care of them, and they are being looked after by them. And their uncles or aunties or their parents, whoever it may be, are responsible for them. They care for them, they feed them, they stay in their house. Such a person I cannot give zakat to, because they are under the care of someone who is wealthy. But if my brother, he is on his own, he's got his own home, and is responsible for his family and his children, etc., etc., and is not under the care of anyone else, then in such a case, I can give my zakat to my brother. And this is the best type of charity I can give to my close relatives, to my uncles, my aunties, my nephews, my nieces. Okay, my brothers and sisters. These people I can give my zakat to. I cannot give my zakat to my mother and father. I cannot give zakat to my own children, no matter what. Mother and father and children, I cannot give them zakat. It will not be accepted. A very common question arises is that can a person pay for their spouse's zakat? Pay their zakat on their behalf. Now the ruling is given that a person can only pay their spouse's zakat on their behalf if they have their permission and their knowledge. If they do not have the spouse's knowledge and permission, then any charity they give in their name will be regarded as nafil charity, not as zakat. Only with the permission and knowledge of your spouse you can give zakat on their behalf. Okay, and a person who gives zakat to his relatives, he will receive the double reward. One reward for paying zakat and the second for caring for his relatives. And before I leave you, there are certain conditions for a person's zakat to be valid. There are two conditions for a person's zakat to be valid. The first condition being is that whatever you will give in zakat, the person receiving the zakat, the poor person receiving the zakat, he must become full owner of whatever he is receiving. It cannot be conditional, it cannot be paid in services. He has to be made owner. You have to give the money to that person. Okay, we cannot pay for their medical bills, we cannot pay for their rent, we cannot pay for their accommodation, we cannot pay for their tuition fees. None of that. They have to be made owner of the thing that we are giving to them. This is a condition. They have to be made owner. We cannot give our zakat to build a masjid or a madrasa or for digging a well. Because here, no one has been made a possessor of whatever is being given. The poor person has to become owner of the wealth to be considered, for the zakat to be considered to be paid. So that's the first condition. Second condition is that it's necessary to make an intention when paying zakat. To make intention in the heart. It doesn't have to verbally say it. You have to make intention of paying zakat. So when we go in the masjid and someone makes an announcement, we are raising money for orphans, etc., etc., whatever it may be, then when we're giving the money to them, at that moment, at that time, we have to make intention that we are paying zakat. Also, if a person is calculating his zakat and separating his money from the zakat, this will be considered as a person intention. This will be considered as a person's intention. Him calculating and separating his money for the zakat. When a person separates his money for zakat, it's not necessary for him to verbally say that this is my zakat money when he's giving it to the poor person. When he's giving the money to the poor person, it's not necessary for him to say that this is my zakat money, because he's already made it clear that he has separated his money for the zakat, and this action will be considered his intention. So lastly, I make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us the understanding of zakat and the rules and regulations pertaining it, and He gives us the ability to pay our zakat in the best manner with sincerity, and also through zakat may Allah bless our wealth, bless our lives, and also purify our wealth. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen.